What a great kickoff to an annual event. I think this is going to be amazing, and I've had a blast watching you all. So as you heard, I'm James Page. A real quick background of who I am and what's important to me and things of that nature. So my wife and I have been together since about 1990. We're high school sweethearts. I'd like to say that I couldn't shake her, but the truth is that she couldn't shake me for all that amount of time. We went off to different colleges, but we stayed together and got married. We have 3 little ones, Nia, Imani, and James. That's the boy. I threaten my girls all the time, and I let them know that you are so lucky that he was not first, because if he is first, you wouldn't be born, because I got tricked and I thought I was a great parent, but really I found out that I was just an average parent and I just had girls. Keep going through. Nia's the track star. She's a cross-country runner. She's a determined little woman. This right here is the one that has me wrapped around her finger. I try to pretend that she doesn't. This is Imani. Imani's a special girl because we found out that during our first ultrasound with Imani that she was being born without a left hand. And we became lifelong pediatric hospital fans. We went to Scottish Rite in Texas, and she's an amazing girl. She's a volleyball star. She plays piano. She does whatever she wants. So, and when she wears her prosthetic, we want to know what's going on, because she's either going to trick someone or hit someone or do something. So it's no good when she does that. So this is Imani as well. She's I can do anything. That's her theme. And then there's a boy. He's an amazing guy. He is what my parents call payback. The curse. He's the curse for, you've heard that, right?
Yes.
I hope you get one just like you. Well, there you go, right there. So the boy is just absolutely unique and amazing, and he is our boy. And these are the boys. These are the Page boys. We've got Jimmy, John, Jeffrey, and Jordan. I am the oldest of all 4 of us, and a really amazing group of guys. We've got, first of all, there's a problem here. And y'all gonna have to excuse this, because this has really nothing to do with the talk. I just wanted to talk about this. First of all, I am the oldest, but I am also the shortest. And I'm the grayest as well. So God has a sense of humor, I think. And we've got 3 Purdue engineers, 3 guys that are all master's prepared, and the one that's not master's prepared, he's got a degree from the Performing Arts in Pennsylvania. He's also probably the most accomplished, unfortunately. So the one that's the artist is the one that has an MTV music award for choreographing something with Beyonce, and he's got Emmy nominations, and he's choreographed on Broadway and been on Broadway and all this stuff. But I taught him all of his dance moves, and when we get done afterwards, I will teach y'all some of those moves if you're really interested. So about me and where I've been. So like I said, I was born in Louisville, Kentucky. From Louisville, I was raised in the great city of Indianapolis, Indiana. From Indianapolis, went to Purdue University, picked up a degree in computer technology. From Purdue, I went to the amazing town of Austin, Texas. I spent about a dozen years with Dell, a little computer company called Dell. A dozen years with Dell, doing some really great things, and Dell asked me to do some other things, and I ended up in diversity, inclusion, and ethics and compliance, and was doing some great things at Dell, and thought I'd be an engineer for the rest of my life. I picked up I'm a Longhorn, picked up an MBA from Hookem. That's what I'm talking about. Picked up an MBA from University of Texas, Austin. I had a job opportunity in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania. Don't know if you know that. It's not pronounced Lancaster, but it's pronounced Lancaster. There you go. It's pronounced Lancaster. I actually had a person in Lancaster pull me aside for 20 minutes to teach me the right pronunciation of the town. From Lancaster, like I said, worked at Lancaster General. Then my family and I moved to Colorado to work with DaVita. From DeVita, we decided to go to Cincinnati and see if we could jump around some fountains. At Cincinnati, I was at Cincinnati Children's for a number of years and would have stayed there for the rest of my life, but another little bitty medical organization called me up and said, we would like for you to be our Chief Diversity Officer, and I said yes. So this gives you my background. So you all got it. You know who I am. Now we can actually start talking about the thing. So question, we're going to talk about leadership a little bit. Tell me what our most important, our most valuable asset is as an organization. People, right. Now, what's our most expensive asset as an organization? People, okay. Now, for those that have managed people, what's the most perplexing asset we have as an organization? You can't point to each other. You too. You're supposed to just say people. You can't say, no, my boss is extremely perplexing. That's not going to help you out with your performance review. Okay? So people are the most complex, perplexed, expensive asset that we have, but they are at the core of who we are and why we are an amazing pediatric organization. So we keep talking about this, and we talk about people, and for companies in the United States, the gross revenue of what you make, over 50% of that goes towards our people. We invest a lot in our people. And as leaders, we have to invest in our people and ensure that they are fully engaged, and we're embracing all aspects of diversity so that we get the best and brightest coming to work and fully giving everything that they have. So we keep talking about this, and we think about how our workforce is changing. Now, if you think back to the traditionalist and boomer time frame, there was a proposition that was put into place at that time. And that was that I am going to work for this company for X period of time, and it's going to be a number of years, quite a few years, probably a couple of decades. And at the end of that, you are going to give me a pension, and I'm going to retire, and we're going to be happy. And that's the way it worked several years ago. Now we jump forward to the whippersnappers like my brother here, and those millennials, and it's a different proposition, right? Now the proposition is that, listen, I know you think you're a really good organization, but here's the deal. You have 3 years that you're a good enough place for me to stay, or I'm out. So the proposition is changing, and what it means to be a good people leader is changing. And we have to realize that and understand how we jump into this new spectrum of managing and leading individuals. And even how we communicate is very dependent on the generations. Now we go again back to the traditionalists, and we look how the traditionalists were communicating. And it was pretty much a typewriter. Anyone in here besides me learned how to type on a 100-pound IBM typewriter that was a dangerous weapon if thrown at you? Okay, you understand that. What was it called? A Selectric, there you go. So traditionalists introduced us to this wonderful heavy weapon that we used as a way of communicating to each other. We move forward a little bit to the boomers and what happened there. With the boomers, we really started to see more call centers and telephone usage and things of that nature. Now, even though email was not an invention of my generation really embraced the fact that to say hello to someone, it takes about 1,000 words and 5 pages and a lot of wasted text, and we're going to say hello, and you read the whole email, and you just ask yourself, why did you send that to me? But it's there. Now we move forward again to the millennials, and what kind of communication is happening there? Well, we don't need 1,000 words to say hello. You get how many words to say hello? 140 characters to say hello. So they get us texting, tweeting, twittering, Facebooking, all these things, and really this is not a trend either. This is something that is here to stay. If you ask millennials what's happening around communication and what they're doing, 89% of millennials say that they have a social media account. This is not a trend. This is something that is here to stay. And I know within this campus we absolutely embrace social media, which is critical to our future. Also, if we look at how our country has changed over time, just a couple of quick facts. We look at the 2010 census data, and we look to see what's happening within our country. In Maryland, where the Hopkins North campuses are located, I've learned that since I've been here. we look at the white population, and the white population has decreased 0.9%. But if we look at the African American population in Maryland, there's been an increase of 15%. The Asian population, there's been an increase of 51%. Some other race alone, 116%. And if we look at Latino versus Hispanic versus not Hispanic, we see a difference of the Hispanic population sees a growth of 107% compared to the white population of about 5%. We take a look at Florida, and we also see a slight increase, I'm sorry, not Florida, California. We see a slight increase of the white population of about 6%. The Asian population grows 32%. The some other race alone population grows 11%. Now, if we look at where we're at here, we see that the white population has grown 13%. There's a 70% increase in the Asian population. And when you compare the Hispanic population to the white population or non-Hispanic population, there's a difference of about 40%. For us to be successful, we have to understand that diversity is not something that might happen, that could happen. It is here. And we have to understand what this means from employing the best and brightest and taking care of the best and brightest who want world-class healthcare within our organizations. We also look at the United States. And as a whole, the United States also has seen a slower increase in the white population, but the Asian population, again, we've seen about a 40% increase, and again, a pretty substantial difference between the white population and, I'm sorry, the Hispanic population and the non-Hispanic population as a country. I also want to have us think about something else when we think about the United States. This term minority. There are 13 states in the United States where this is not applicable anymore. We are no longer in 13 states we are now a minority-majority country. This means that who we employ is going to change. And we have to understand that as we look to broaden our reach, it is critical that we understand how to engage these unique populations. So let's leave some of the numbers alone, and let's talk about what it means to be part of the Johns Hopkins family. Diversity is in our DNA. So many times I've heard people here, within my week here, tell me that all children's means that we truly take care of all children. All children are our patients. That means despite whatever ethnicity, language, race, background, country origin, all children are our patients. We look at Mr. Johns Hopkins, who gave a substantial amount of money to start Johns Hopkins in about 125 years ago. In his obituary, it stated that Mr. Johns Hopkins despised all forms of sectarianism and bigotry. Now, for those of you who don't know, sectarianism means basically racism. It also said in 1870 is when these were published. Mr. Hopkins established a home for colored orphans, and he gave $20,000 a year for this orphanage in 1870. Now, we say that's a great amount of money, and it sounds huge, and it is huge. Because if we take that and we transfer it to today's numbers, we're talking about $5.18 million every year Mr. Johns Hopkins gave for colored kids to have a home. We keep looking, and we look at what it said in Mr. Hopkins' will. In his will, he said that Johns Hopkins was going to not only be for whites, but also for the sick and colored people and children in the world. We also look at some of the substantial donors. One of the amazing women that made Johns Hopkins possible was Miss Mary Elizabeth Garrett. Miss Garrett gave a substantial amount of money so we could start our medical school. What Miss Garrett said when she gave this amount of money was that Johns Hopkins was going to make sure that women enjoyed all of the advantages on the same terms as men. This was a stipulation that was put in place in 1890. Now think about these things that have happened 100 years ago. These people were saying that we are going to have a place where everyone can be equal. This is in our DNA. This is who we are. Now, what we have to ask ourselves is that, do we have the ability to live up to the bar that has been set 100 years ago for us? As we think about the future and think about right now, we realize that in 2015, 2/3 of all undergraduates will be women. We see that within the medical classes. We see that within the representations of our staff. We see that here within the leadership. But 2/3 of all undergraduates will be women. We also look at the top 15 fastest growing jobs in the United States. Of the top 15 fastest growing jobs, 13 of them are going to be female dominated. And of those 13 that are female dominated, 11 of them are going to be within healthcare. We have a tremendous charge and opportunity to change the future, to really embrace this future. And we are perfectly positioned to have a substantial impact in our communities. I want you to think about diversity, and here's the terms I want you to think about diversity in. I want you to think about generations, and we're going to do an exercise. I want you to think about generations. I want you to think about LGBT status. I want you to think about the race, education, and tenure someone has within an organization. So I want you to think about those things, and I'm going to put up a couple of jobs. And I want you to paint a picture in your head when we put up these jobs within those six categories. So the first one we're going to think about is a professional athlete. I want you to get a picture of a person in your mind. I want you to think of the age of this person. I want you to think of the ethnicity. I want you to think about the race, the sexual orientation, all those things. Have you got a picture in your mind? Now, there's too many people to go around and ask each of you and poll each of you to figure out what you're thinking. So what I did is I went to Google and I went to Yahoo, and I'm able to do an image search. And I typed in professional athlete, and they gave me a bunch of pictures. Now, here's what came up when we looked at professional athlete. What are you seeing when you look at this? Tell me what pops in your mind when you look at this. A lot of men. African Americans. What's that? Young. Did it match the picture in your mind for the most part? Yes, no. Now, don't get me wrong. We have Bruce Lee here, so we've got our Asian. We have right here Tom Brady. I forget his name because he's playing the Colts this weekend. Just can't remember that name for some reason. Tom Brady. So we have a sprinkling, but just think about, did this match the picture in your mind? Now we're going to do a couple of other things. I want you to think about a doctor or a surgeon. Think about the age, ethnicity. Think about educational level, race, tenure, all of that. Have you got a picture in your mind of someone? Okay, again, I went to Google, Yahoo, did an image search. I did a print screen of the image search, and here's what came up. So, what are your thoughts? Someone said, oh my God. No, God's not up there, I don't think. What came to your mind? Okay, I'm sorry, they may think that, but really, God's not up there, trust me. What came to your mind? They're all white. No, there's a black guy. Right there he is. Okay, what else? And I have to apologize as well for the doctor that's flicking us off. I didn't put him in here on purpose, but this may represent someone's impression of doctors, I guess. I don't know. So this is what came up when we looked at Yahoo and did an image search of doctors. So we did the same thing, and I decided, okay, we've got docs. Let's look at a CEO. Okay, get in your mind, president, CEO. What do they look like? How do they dress? Race, ethnicity, etc. Here's what came up. Did this match the picture that you had in your head? I see it all over the place. And what are your impressions when you look at these photos? All men, there has to be a woman somewhere up here, right? Okay, well, Biff is up here, y'all. Biff from Back to the Future. I don't know how he got up there, but there's Biff. So that evens it out a little bit. He's still white male, but he's different. Diversity, right? We're going to do the same thing with a human resource executive. Think about a human resource executive. Same thing, same criteria. Went to Yahoo, did a search, did a print screen, and here's what came up. Yep. Did this match what was in your mind? Yep. Yes. Now we're going to think about a scientist. I want you to think of the same thing. When you think about famous scientists, I want you to think of their age, ethnicity, what do they wear, all those different things, education, etc. Here's what came up when I did the search. There's a woman right here. There's a woman. There's a couple of women right there as well. So we've got a few women. Did this match what was in your head? No? No? Yeah? No? It's all over. Okay, I also want you to think about a nurse. I want you to think about age, gender, ethnicity, dress, how she conducts herself, things of that nature. Got the picture in your head? Here's what came up. Did this match what was in your mind? No. Yes? No. So I'm seeing both. And it's strong on both sides. Now here's what's interesting about this particular search. Out of all the searches, the only one where the individuals were explicitly sexualized. It also is only, it sends an interesting message as well. And why did I do all this? Because I want you to think about the power of perceptions. As we think about little boys that decide, I want to be a nurse. And they go to Google and they type nurse. And this is what comes up. What kind of perception, image, impact does that have with that little boy, with that little girl? How do pictures like this tell them that little girls need to conduct themselves, who want to be a very respected, dignified, highly trained individual? We have to understand the power of the perceptions that are out within our communities. I also want us to think about autism. Think about an autistic person. Have you got something in your mind when you think of that? Here's what's interesting. I'm an engineer, my brother's an engineer. And I spent a lot of time doing software coding and decoding. And in my mind, and now let me jump back. Okay, so I went to school, and it was at the time where they were using workstations, large workstation, mainframe type computers. So I would type my programs out on the computer, and then I would go and print them out so I could decode them, and they'd get stuffed into this window. And it was like a 20-foot long piece of paper that I had to read through to decode. And when I got through reading that piece of paper, this piece of paper that was like a half-mile long, I was just brain numb. It was the most boring, repetitive, mind-numbing task in the world. But there are people within our communities that love that kind of stuff. So here's there are a couple of companies that decided they would take the unique aspects of being autistic and use that as to their advantage. A couple of technology companies. Now here's the pictures that came up when we did this. When I look at these, they don't look happy to me. They don't look engaged. They don't look like they are part of a community. These two companies decided to do something different. And when they decided to do it, they decided to bust open the normal pattern of what people saw when they looked at autistic individuals. What do you see here? What's this a picture of? A cube. Everyone sees a cube, right? Now, really, is there a cube here? Really, there's not a cube here. What you see is you see 8 circles, and these 8 circles are arranged in such a way that our mind fills in the gap. We get a little bit of information, our mind fills in the gap, and we create a cube based on that little bit of perception that we start off with. Now, as we look at these different companies, these technology companies, what they decided is that they were going to take some of the amazing things about being autistic, and what they found is that within some spectrums of autism, there's a zero tolerance for errors. There's an unceasing enthusiasm for repetitive tasks. There's a out-of-the-box thinking. There's a passion for details. They have a persistence to get the job done. They find intersections that normal people miss, and they are very honest. These are qualities that I would love to have in employees if you can figure out how to properly leverage their diversity. And that's what these companies did. They take these individuals, they employ them, and they use them as software decoders for large companies. That's what diversity is about, understanding the difference and understand how we utilize that difference to have a major impact within the items that matter for the organization. So we keep looking through these, and just a quick statement. Too often, talent is defined by its deficits rather than their unique values and contributions they bring to the organization. So real quick, we're going to try to get through this. What is diversity? What is diversity? Joe just said it, so it's a kind of a review quiz. What is diversity? What is it? What's it mean? Okay, this is a wireless mic, and I love that fact. So what is diversity?
Why would you come?
Because you were not looking at me, and you acted like you didn't want to answer the question. So I came to you.
I did not answer the question.
What is your name?
Fatima.
Fatima, right here, Fatima. That's what I'm talking about. What is diversity, Fatima?
Oh, Lord have his mercy.
No, that could be, but that is not diversity. Now, what is diversity, Fatima?
You got my heart pumping.
We are on a... Is there a doctor in the house? Fatima, what is diversity? Come on now. Just tell me. It's not hard.
I'm too shy.
Okay, can somebody help Fatima out? Because you're not looking at me as well, Rose. Rose, help your friend out. Come on now.
Put me on the spot.
Difference. Yes. Now, are you sure that you understand these? Because I've got a few more minutes to talk to us. Is that it?
Yes.
Difference. Okay, I'm going to let you go. Thanks a lot. Okay, so wireless mic, loving it. What is inclusion? Differences, yes. What is inclusion? If you don't look at me, you're probably going to get called on. What's inclusion? Marie?
All I can think is differences. I'm not.
Differences, okay. Anyone else?
Bringing together.
Bringing people together. There we go. Now, here's a question. Are they the same?
No.
No, they're not. Here's what I say. Diversity is being asked to the party. Inclusion is being asked to dance. It's one thing to get people in the room. It's another to pull them off the wall and let them be part of the party. And that's where our job is to get people to dance. So as we keep going through these, we're going to skip through these right here because I'm short of time. This is the diversity circle. The diversity circle, we have items that are below and at surface level and below the surface level of the iceberg. And basically, those are the things you can see, and some of the things you can see and some of the things you can't see. You can see if I'm assuming that you all work at all children's because you're here in this room, we can figure that out. You can figure out race as some folks. You can figure out ethnicity sometimes. If I wear a crucifix everywhere I go. If you see that, you can probably figure out that I'm religious. So you can figure some of these things out, surface level. But there are things that are below the iceberg, which are parental status, marital status, military experience, things of that nature. And just because something is below the iceberg does not mean it is less important than those items that are that you can see and figure out. To get to those items below the iceberg, we need to ask questions, engage, and talk to each other. We're going to leave that at that. Now, here's what I want you to do. We're going to build a symphony orchestra. And I want you to tell me the items that are necessary to build a symphony orchestra, okay? Yell them out. What do I need to build a symphony orchestra? Conductor, strings, trombone, people, drums, cello, what else? Piano. What? Musicians. Musicians. There you go. Yeah. Music stands. Yes. Music. Fingers. Conductor. There we go. So we've got all the things, and here's our. So we're going to do this, and we're going to build our symphony orchestra. Okay? You got it? Now, we've done all these things, and we've put all the instruments up, you said, and we're getting ready to start, and you said conductor, right? We need a conductor. We're going to get the best darn conductor the money can buy for our symphonic orchestra. We're going to lay Mr. Bugs Bunny at the helm of our symphony orchestra. Okay? Y'all ready? So we've done all that. Now we're going to listen to our symphony orchestra play. Okay, so we put together our symphony orchestra. Did you like it?
No.
No? Okay. We'll talk about that in a second. What's that?
Sheet music, where's the music?
Oh, we need sheet music as well. We're going to assume sheet music was in there as well. There was sheet music, okay? Now, here's what we're going to say. Diversity is always beneficial. Diversity is not always beneficial. Why do I say that? Dr. Milton Bennett did a research study, and he wanted to know why there was such disparity when people looked at diversity studies. He would see some researchers that were well respected, that did all kinds of deep studies, and they found that diversity was extremely beneficial to organizations. But there were also researchers that were just as competent, just as well respected, had just as many resources, and they found out that diversity was not beneficial. So they had some folks that said it was beneficial, some folks that said it wasn't beneficial. Mr. Bennett wanted to understand why there was a gap here. So what Mr. Bennett did is he researched this, and what he found that average performance always sat in the middle. So a monocultural team sat in the middle. But diverse teams either did set on the extreme far end of the standard deviation curve, or they set on the very positive end of either extreme of the standard deviation curve. He wanted to know why that took place. So before we get to Mr. Bennett, what we're going to do is quickly talk about another band. In this band, we're going to have washboards, tambourines, we're going to have Native American drums, we're going to have a bunch of different countries, people, some of them are street musicians, all these people are coming together. And when they come together, they are from 27 countries, 37 musicians, from 20 different languages, but one song. I want you to take a look at this real quick.
When the night has come and the land is dark and that moon is the only light we'll see. No, I won't be afraid. No, I won't shed one tear. Just as long as your people come and stand by me. Darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Oh, stand by me. Come on, stand by me. Yeah. Oh, when that sky that we look upon, when she tumble and fall.
25 people from different parts of the world that came together. They never met each other, and many of them were street musicians. But they were able to pull together a different kind of symphony. Now, what I want you to think about is what is the difference between this particular band versus the one that we pulled together. Now, when we go back to Dr. Milton Bennett's work, we explore more about why there was a difference between what he was finding. Why did Playing for Change succeed, but our symphony orchestra fail? What Mr. Bennett found, the difference that separated these two groups was what? Passion. One song. One song. Coordination. Leadership. Leadership is the thing that separated these two groups on either end. The fact that this Playing for Change had a conductor that really provided leadership, that said, here's what we're going to do, that allowed people to maintain their own style, voice, way of expressing themselves, but put everyone together so that there was a common leader, common thought, common mission, really made a huge difference. So, we think about leadership, and we ask ourselves, what are the qualities of a good leader? Who are good leaders? How do we define a strong leader? My daughter came to me a couple of years ago, and she said, Dad, what is a leader? She was doing a research paper. What is a leader? And how do I know a good leader, and how can I be a good leader when I grow up? And I had an opportunity to go on a civil rights pilgrimage with leaders from all over the world, many members of Congress. And she and I did an experiential study of what leadership was. And while we were doing that, she got to meet some incredible folks. I took her to the 16th Street Baptist Church. And while we were there, she got an incredible opportunity to meet Miss Carolyn McKenzie. Now, Miss McKenzie was in the church when it was bombed and lost her best friend. Now, Miss McKenzie goes around the world speaking on tolerance, on leadership. She also had an incredible opportunity while we were doing our pilgrimage to see some of the things that force leaders to step up, to really answer our questions, are leaders born or made? She got to look at some of the Freedom Park statues that showed the police dogs and how voracious they were when they were pushing these marchers back. We had an opportunity to visit the Dexter Street Baptist Church where Dr. King was minister and spoke at the altar many times. And while we were there, she got an opportunity to talk with Minister Fred Shuttlesworth. She asked a lot of questions to Jesse Jackson while we were on our pilgrimage about leadership. She got an opportunity to talk to Miss Juanita Abernathy, who was the wife of Reverend Abernathy. Nia got the incredible chance to sit down and have lunch with Dr. Martin Luther King's sister, Christine King, to talk to her about what leadership was and what made her brother such an incredible leader. We marched, we retraced the steps of Bloody Sunday in Selma, Alabama. We marched across the bridge where Bloody Sunday took place, and she was side by side with the incredible Congressman John Lewis. And she got to read his book and talk to him about what leadership was and how he kept persisting as he was bloodied and bowed multiple times during his walk to help liberate our country. So we look forward to where we're at right now and the impact that these young folks are having, and we ask ourselves, what makes a good leader? Nia and I really discussed this quite a bit. And as we were at the one of the Freedom Museums and she was reflecting on the words of Dr. King, she decided that leaders are not always born, but the circumstances pushes them to that level. She and I recently went to the MLK Memorial, where she got to reflect on that further. And what I want you all to think about is that as we look at Dr. King as a child with his family, all of you have an opportunity to step up in a very unique way because of the environment you're in, because of the wonderful work that we do within this institution. And as I leave you, I want you to reflect on the words of one of my mentors. And what he says is that it is not enough for us to tolerate our differences. It is not enough for us to celebrate differences. It's not enough for us to appreciate each other's differences. It's not enough for us to be sensitive to each other's differences. We don't do this work because of the 4 F's, the 3 F's, food, flag, and fun of diversity. But where we need to get to as an organization is to be able to say, as Mr. Andre Tapia says, I need your diversity and you need mine for us to be successful. And finally, as I leave you, I'm going to quote the president of the AAMC. And he says, as goes Hopkins, so goes the rest of academic medicine. So I thank you very much. I think we're right at time. So if you have any questions, please let me know. But I think we may be pushing forward. Is that right, Joe? Thanks.